Okay, so welcome back. This is Act 2 now of the 21st Century Hero's Journey. So, this is the part where we go into the emotional realm. So, just as the first act was the realm of the mental, the second act is the realm of the emotional. And in Campbellian mythology, this is the crossing of the first threshold. It is also the road of trials. It's the time where you really start to go from conscious incompetence to conscious competence. And that's an emotional journey. It takes a lot of failure and the ability to stand up after getting knocked down a lot. And that's the emotional realm. So with this first part that I call the deserts in the emotional realm, it's where we do a lot of emotional work. I did a more thorough introduction on the emotional hierarchy exercise in the most meaningful conversation. That's really where the bulk of the work is here in Act 2 of this. So as we go along with our stories, I want you to think about the story that you picked to examine. One of my favorite stories is The Karate Kid. And it's kind of interesting where we explore the number 4 here. The number 4 corners represents stability and process. And in The Karate Kid, this is the moment where he's learning the 4 blocking techniques, in the story. Wax on, wax off. Paint the house side to side. You paint the fence up and down. Sand the floor. So he's learning up, down, side, sand, down block, overhead block, and inside blocks, and there's 4 of them there. And I thought that was a very nice tribute to this idea of the road of trials and how the number 4 is the archetype for, going into the emotional realm. So looking at the stories that we've been exploring so far, The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy and her friends are on this road of trials, which is called the Yellow Brick Road. And even at the end of that yellow brick road, that long journey, they come into the poppy field where they fall asleep for a little bit. And it's a long journey. Within Star Wars, it's this journey aboard the Millennium Falcon, and Luke is training the entire time while he's on this journey on this ship. So that's a road of trials as well. And I actually kind of like to look at the entire story of Harry Potter from the beginning of the Sorcerer's Stone to the end at the Deathly Hallows. The Road of Trials is the Triwizard Tournament, where Harry is going through these tasks to develop his skills. The fight with the dragon, the into the abyss with the Mermaid's Lake, and then through the labyrinth with the in the labyrinth, where he has to claim the cup. And then there's that 4th one, the unexpected 4th one, the confrontation with Voldemort as Voldemort rises from the, from the grave. So there's this, this is, the emotional realm. And you have, I'm sure, one of those moments as well, too. And for me, I chose this year, 2019, to really exemplify that. For me, because I'm doing a lot of work as far as recording, as far as making documentary films. I've been teaching, but I've been doing a lot of teaching in front of nobody except the camera. But I believe it's all going somewhere. So it's kind of like you have that faith to develop those skills, even though it doesn't look like there's anything upcoming yet. But it's really the heart. It's the 4 chakra as well. It's the heart of everything that you've worked for, so that you can rely upon those emotional skills when you need them. So I'd like you to go ahead and pause the recording and try to find the moment in your life, the year in your life, where you felt like that this idea of really working towards something painstakingly has come up for you. I guess 1987 could really be that for me as well, when I was at karate quite a lot. That's that was definitely a 4-year, but I'll probably put that in for another year as well too. But so I'll go ahead and let you pause the recording, and we'll come back and we'll do that exercise, the next exercise. So yeah, as I mentioned before, in the most meaningful conversation, that we explored what's called the emotional hierarchy. And what that is it takes what's called the map of consciousness, which I was first introduced to that by Dr. David Hawking in the book Power versus Force. And we do this activity where we add on the repetition, like we did with In My World or I Am, fill in the blank, and we start to explore those emotions. And, a lot of the time, you start out with, let's say frustration. That's a very common feeling to feel when you're on this journey. I'll start a little lower because it feels like fear might not be too much of a. I try to do emotions that I know that I can authentically express, especially in front of a camera and on a microphone. But I'm gonna reintroduce that list of emotions. And what you do is you come up one emotion at a time. And whenever you feel like you're coming into an emotion that does not feel real, that does not feel authentic, you stop. But I'm going to try to go lower a little bit and start with fear. And I'm going to do this repetition exercise. And I'll encourage you to look at that list and start as low as you want to, and then work up as high as you want to. But that's really the beginning of starting to cross into the emotional threshold of conscious competence. I'll do a minute of fear to start. I fear not knowing what to say. I fear being judged. I fear that people will not get anything out of this work. I fear that people won't understand this work. I fear that I'm still just doing all kinds of work that will have no bearing or no impact whatsoever. I fear quitting. I fear stopping. I fear being misunderstood most of all. I fear that my computer and my camera won't work. I fear that people will misunderstand my intentions. I fear the past coming back to haunt me. I fear not knowing what to say next. I fear that this technique won't work, even though it has worked every single time I've done it. So that's 1 minute. So what I'd like you to do is, after recording that, is to go back and listen to yourself and do what I call a calibration up of each thought. So for instance, I fear misunderstood. The next emotion up from fear is want, desire. So the obvious response is I want to be understood. That's what I want. So I'll do a minute of want, what I want. I want this entire hour that I have work to do to go by like nothing and to have a lot of fun. I want to dissolve the hierarchy. I want to dissolve the new aristocracy. I want to be able to do that peacefully and with love. I want to be able to be heard. I want to listen. I want to repeat a lot of things I already said when I did this I want exercise. Okay, so good. That's I want. Okay. Wow. So what came out for me was a big thing. I want to create economic equality. I want to dissolve the new the new hierarchy or the new aristocracy. That's big stuff coming out there. So if I calibrate up from let's go with that original thought. I want to be understood. Calibrating up is anger, frustration. Okay. So if I'm just going to let it out and say, I'm angry that people don't understand some of this higher concept stuff that frustrates me. All right. So I'm going to go for a full minute of anger and frustration. I'm frustrated that people don't know how to talk to each other. I'm frustrated that people don't listen. I'm frustrated that I'm frustrated about all of this right now. I'm frustrated that I have to make myself frustrated to be able to articulate this activity. I'm frustrated that I don't have more time to express my frustration because I'm only doing a minute. I'm frustrated that I laughed at that. I'm frustrated that that I'm an imperfect person, with an imperfect voice, trying to get this out. I'm frustrated that it's still a process and it just doesn't happen instantly. All right, so anyway, that's my thoughts for frustration and anger. Yeah, I'm gonna go as high up as feels real with this, but I'm gonna go up into the next one up from anger is pride. So what was my original thought? I'm angry that people don't talk to each other. I'm angry that people don't understand this higher concept stuff. So I'll calibrate that one up and go with pride. I say I'm proud that I'm still doing this work after almost 20 years. I'm proud of my longevity and my endurance and my duration. I'm proud that I continue to work in the shadows without acknowledgement. I'm proud that I can see the strength and appreciate others. I'm proud that I've slowed down this exercise to really get centered on what I'm proud of. I'm proud of the new distinctions I'm making even now after doing this exercise for close to 20 years. I'm proud of where we're going collectively as people who have the ability to understand and to use this technology to connect. All right, great. So that's pride. And again, I will encourage you to go as long as you want with this. For the sake of timing, I'm just doing a minute or less. But I'll go back to one of those thoughts and I'll say, I'm proud that I'm still doing this after 20 years. If I calibrate that up, the next one is, what is the next one? Courage. Yeah. Courage is surrendering to your passion. Courage is standing up and saying, look, I think I have a solution to the problems of everything we see right here. Courage is admitting that I'm not the only one that has these answers. Courage is acknowledging that we're a team and that we do this together. Courage is taking a step back and letting someone else shine. Courage. There's more courage in being loving than there is in being combative. Courage is not coming up with the perfect word to describe what it is you're feeling. Courage is just expressing how you're feeling, even if you're not sure what the right words are. Courage is going to the next emotion. Okay. So the next emotion is trust. And I'm just gonna work off the cuff here. So I do encourage you that if you do this in a written activity, that you take your thoughts from each one and calibrate it up. So it spins off from the thought, the emotion, the thought from the emotion preceding it. But I'm hearing and remembering a lot of things I said in the most meaningful conversation, and that is, I trust this process. I trust being able to just speak from my heart. I trust that people will have the ears to hear this and connect to it. I trust that people really want connection and to communicate in this kind of way. I trust that this is powerful by myself, but it's much more powerful working within small groups. I trust that the time is probably almost out, even though I'm not even looking at my timer anymore. I'm looking at the camera. I trust that I've owned this material to the point where it resonates. Okay. So the next one up is willingness and determination. I'm just going to plow through the emotions as it feels right. Okay. I'm willing to finish this recording. I'm willing to go through the entire hero's journey. I'm willing to be one with my emotions. I'm willing to keep talking even though I don't have anything to say off the top of my head. I'm willing to be with this energy because there's a lot of energy coming in right now. I'm willing to not be ashamed that I feel that energy, and that kind of sounds wiki woo-woo to some people. I'm willing to just embrace this moment. I'm willing to be present. I'm willing to have another thought. I'm willing to share this openly with everybody. Next one up is acceptance, forgiveness. I accept that not a lot of people will understand this upon first listening to it. I accept that the rule of three applies, that if you hear something once, you get the content. If you hear it twice, you get the, if you hear it once, you get the introduction. If you hear it twice, you get the content. If you hear it 3 times, you get to master it. I accept that it's a process and not about a product. I accept that I'm at 15 minutes right now, and I'm not even all the way through the emotional part yet. I accept that it's okay, that there is no time limit on speaking the truth. I accept that the right people will hear this and will resonate with it. I accept that if I look at the camera, I'll make a connection with you as well. So let's go one up. Clarity. I'm clear that this stuff works. I'm clear that this is powerful. I'm clear that this is not a Scientology experiment, I swear. I am clear. I am clear that was funny. Clarity is about listening and observing. Clarity is about creating the safe spaces where people can truly listen and observe. Clarity is emotional intelligence. Clarity is knowing that collectively as a people that we're undervalued. Clarity is knowing that that slavery is overvalued. Human resources are exploited. There's clarity in that. There's clarity that 2 times 2 equals 4, and then that taken to the 20th power is 1 million. There's a lot of clarity there. All right, I'm going to go up to love and move on after that. So I love this work. I love humanity. I love the simplicity of just being able to sit in front of someone and hear what they're here to do in this world. I love spirituality. I love finding the intersections between different beliefs in spirituality. I love talking without planning what I'm going to say next. I love, I'll go back to I love people, and I love where we're going. And I love that there's a bright future here. There really is a bright future. All right, so that is, that was the deserts. We just crossed the deserts. I talked about the number 4 archetype. So 4 represents the 4 corners, the stability in the process. So now we're going to go on to the second part of Act 2, which is what I call the plot twist. Campbell would describe this as the temptations to pull you off of your journey. The archetype with this is oftentimes the siren. Campbell talks about how, in the masculine hero's journey, sometimes the woman represents the distraction, but really what it is, it's that which, kind of feeds into more of your ego than your sense of purpose than anything else. In the number archetypes, in the 4 corners, there's a 5th element that comes out and breaks the barriers. So it's about freedom and discipline. If we compare that to Dan Millman's version of numerology. So in the stories that we've been discovering so far, the plot twist happens when, in The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy and her companions reach the Emerald City. They are asking for what they want, the brain, the heart, the courage, going home. And the wizard says, not yet. You got to do something else for me. You got to go kill the Wicked Witch of the West. So, the whole story takes on another tone and you're off in another direction. Turn it around. In Star Wars, what happens is the Millennium Falcon and Luke and Obi-Wan and all their companions reach Alderaan, and there's no Alderaan there anymore. It's been blown out of existence. So that's a pretty traumatic thing to have happen. So the world gets turned upside down. That's the whole purpose of this 5th element, the plot twist. And again, going back to the Harry Potter series, what happens at the end of that Triwizard Tournament? Voldemort is resurrected. He's no longer a spirit. He's in physical form again. And things take a turn for the very dark after that. And that's where this is all going, is to a very dark place next. So, so that's the plot twist. It's the unexpected. So I would like you to now go back to your headlines activity on your pad. And I want you to try to find a year that really felt like a plot twist to you. Where did I have that in mind? You know what? I don't think I have one listed on mine here at the moment. Yeah, I used that already. Okay, so Yeah, for me, the plot twist would be I'm going to go with 2003 on that. 2003 to go into both my 5 and my 6, since it looks like I also skipped one too. So 2003 was that year where I was doing a lot of understudying and I was working in the financial field as well. But as I was taking my break in this recording, I also realized that that was the year I started doing workshops for suicide survivors. So that was a complete plot twist. I thought what acting and drama and theater was all about was being famous and making money and doing films and all that. What I found out was it was exploring a deeper psychology and helping people overcoming some real emotional and life problems. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that work in the suicide field and the mental health field in my next in my next presentation for the one person presentation. But that was a real plot twist. And that's where I really felt like the reason why I was doing it was much different than what I ended up doing with it. So I'll let you pause the recording and come up with the year where you felt like, there was a complete upheaval. Things got turned upside down. And we'll have you come back, and I'm going to introduce an exercise, but we're not actually going to do it on this recording. Okay, welcome back. So we're halfway through our journey. And we've been through the first 5 parts of a 9-part 21st century heroes journey that we're going through here. So this exercise I'm going to talk about just a little bit because, again, a lot of the purposes, the purpose of this particular experience, this recording, is I want you to get introduced to it, but I also want to encourage group interaction. I want you to share this. I want you to partake in some of the activities that I'm asking you to do on your own so that we can also meet in small groups and to do some of this work and to see where the correlations are in what we want out of life and what we want to create. So the activity for plot twists is something that I call voices. Voices is an exercise where I was introduced to it in the mental health field, where we were learning how to empathize with schizophrenics. And the purpose of that exercise is that you sit in a chair and you're conducting an interview, like you're interviewing for your dream job. And your goal, your task is to listen to the questions and respond to the questions as if you were in a real interview. And in one ear, there was somebody whispering and shouting all positive things. You're great, you got this, you're very capable, you can do this. And there's someone else in the other ear whispering negative things. Oh, you suck, you can't do this. What makes you think you can do this? You're terrible. And, they'll whisper all kinds of satanic things as well. In the other ear, in the positive things, they'll be spouting off gospels or something like that. It could be a very stressful situation when you're listening to the interviewer. And I like to try to put people in the position where they're interviewing for their dream life and their dream job, and they're still having to deal with the chatter on each side. So, a good friend of mine, when she partook in this activity, even said it's like the voice of the sirens. It's one of those things. So obviously that's not something I'm going to demonstrate here. I'm sure I could do all kinds of editing wizardry and create 4 of me. One doing the interview, one taking the interview, one as the positive, and one as the negative. But you get the idea. That's something I'd love to do together if we have a chance to work together. All right, so that was 5. And now we're going into the final part of Act 2, which is great. We are at 24 minutes in, and I'm honoring my own schedule on this, and I'm very happy about that. So this is the last part of Act 2, the final phase of the emotional realm. And this is what's called the Dark Night. And Campbell will call this the belly of the whale. This is after the time where, you've gone through the road of trials, you've gone through the plot twist, your world's got turned upside down, and you descend down into a very dark place. A lot of times people will meet their greatest fear at this point. It's the kind of thing where you really find you really kind of have to reconcile the mental with the emotional there. This too shall pass. And it's a very, you almost appear to have died. I mean, the heroes in the stories that we're discussing go through that appearance of death so that they can reemerge. So the number 6 is the archetype here, and it spirals in to make the 6, and it kind of looks like like pregnancy. It kind of looks like a number that is pregnant. The sacred feminine is associated with the 6. A lot of times it's misconstrued with evil as well, because it really has to do with merging with that subconscious. Those irrational fears as well. And in our stories in The Wizard of Oz, that's when Dorothy reaches the witch's castle, but she's captured. And she's put in this fortress, in this room with the egg timer, with the sand timer, which tells her how long she has to live. That's a very dark place. So you're dealing with the concept of life and death right there. For Star Wars, that's the trash compactor. Where there's this little snake-like being, in the abyss. I mean, that's another archetype for it, is the abyss. That pulls, the hero down into the abyss, and there's depths there. In Harry Potter, I think the whole story of Order of the Phoenix was a psychological abyss for Harry in that story. So he loses his godfather, Sirius Black, in that story, and having to confront the reason for him being the chosen one. Is a very dark thing. Having to confront the fact that someone tried to murder you as a child, and now you find out why, because you find out as Harry Potter, that you're the one who's here to to stop that darkness, and that's a very, very difficult thing to confront. It's this motif of the abyss. Another good Harry Potter analogy or Harry Potter archetype is the devil's snare from the first story, where they fall into this pit, and there's this vegetation that's kind of strangling them, and the more they give in to fear or frustration or any of those negative emotions, it strangles them, and the remedy, of course, is to relax into it. The more you relax, the more you kind of fall through, and it lets you go. So the more you struggle, the more it ensnares you, and that's the entire description of the moment of that number 6 in the 21st century hero's journey. So I'm going to ask you to look at your life, your headlines exercise, and find the year where something like that might have happened, that you really went through something like that. Thinking back about it, I have other years that I think would be more appropriate for that, but sticking with the years from the exercise that we've already done, as I said before, my 2003 was kind of both a 5 and a 6. So it was. I worked a lot in the mental health field with suicide survivors at that time, and it was also a time where I was working very hard and not even being noticed. I was like the only one there. I was alone in my pit of isolation. And it's kind of interesting. I understudied a show where I learned 75 pages, and I never left stage the entire time. The other character, the actress I was working with, would come on and off, but I realized there were times where I was there on my own. And I realized as well there was that performance where it got snowed out and nobody showed up. That was my one performance for that one, for that one understudying gig. And I worked so hard on that for like 3 months or so. And I had this overwhelming sense of fear when I was doing that performance that nobody was able to come and see because it was snowed out. And just realizing, I'm all alone. I'm doing all this work and it's for nothing. But I'm starting to see now, no, it's not for nothing. It's for what I'm doing here today. And that's pretty powerful stuff to me. Okay. So, go ahead and pause the recording and find your number 6 here. And then when we come back, I'm going to introduce an improv exercise, and we'll go over a half an hour here, but I'm okay with that if you're okay with that. Great. Okay, welcome back. So this is an improv exercise I call See, Hear, Feel. This was an exercise that I I kind of put the fine touches on, but it's inspired by an activity called sense memory that Uta Hagen, the acting teacher Uta Hagen, used to employ. But you can go back to that moment that was fearful for you, and I encourage you to do this only if you feel ready. Don't, feel free to not to not do these kinds of exercises unless you really want to do some exploration. So the idea is you first repeat everything that you see from the past. In that moment, you put yourself in that moment where you were experiencing some pretty intense things. For instance, I see the white shirt I was wearing when I was doing that performance. I see the black stage looking down. I look up and I see the spotlight that's in my eyes that blinds me to the fact that there's nobody in the audience. I see the red curtains on each side of the stage. So, whatever you see in that moment, just go through everything that you see. Then take a moment to really just center into whatever you hear in that moment. And it's okay if you're not 100% sure. The mind truly doesn't know what it remembers and what it's creating anyway. So feel free to fill in those details as well. So what I hear is the cough of the man running the lights. I hear chatter from the stage managers in the back. I hear my brain. I hear my heart pulse in my temple going through as I start to feel a little bit more anxious. I hear the sound effect of a whistle going off the stage. I hear the applause of one person in the audience. Okay, so whatever that is for you. And then finally, go through what you feel in that moment. And I like to encourage going up the chakra center. It doesn't, if that sounds a little new agey or wiki woo woo, just whatever you feel. But I like to go up through like the stomach, the heart, the throat, the head, the crown, and all of that, and what you feel at that moment. My heart feels heavy. My stomach had butterflies, but it's just kind of like a pit right now. My throat is relaxed. My head is buzzing a little bit. My crown feels like light's coming through, that there is something inspiring to be discovered here. I just haven't found it yet. Okay, so whatever that is for you in that negative, dark night moment, revisit, see, hear, feel. So go ahead and pause this recording and go ahead and do that and journal any kind of anything that comes up for you, any new discoveries that come up for you. And then we're going to do one more thing with that activity, and then we'll move on to Act 3. Okay, so we're going to play See, Hear, Feel one more time. Now, this time I want you to put yourself in the moment of achieving your goal. You've succeeded in your goal. Where are you? What are you experiencing at that moment? And we're going to do the same See, Hear, Feel activity. And we're going to put yourself at the end of your quest, everything that you've worked for and you've already attained it. So, yeah. So I'm putting myself at the end of achieving a service and education economy. I see myself doing these kind of workshops like I'm recording today. I see myself doing that on a beach. I see myself in a small group of five people around my age or younger. I see one or two people who are older, who are probably in their 60s or 70s. Sitting in a circle doing this. I see myself in a white shirt that's kind of blowing in the wind. I see eyes, loving eyes, just looking at me and appreciating, being able to do this kind of work. Here, I hear the waves. I hear laughter. I hear other people laughing, chuckling, just small chuckles with listening to my accounts of this kind of work. I hear applause, 5 people clapping for that. I do hear a loved one shouting from some distance away, maybe 100 yards, saying, "Hey, I'm coming." Don't start without me, or don't finish without me. So that's I could go deeper into that, but that feels right. So let me go into feeling. My heart feels relaxed and flowing, knowing that there's nothing to ever worry about again. My throat feels relaxed, and my voice is deeply resonating like it is now, especially after doing an hour and 40 minutes of talking and recording. My mind is relaxed. It's just flowing like the water behind me, and I'm just observing, everyone. My ears feel relaxed now because I'm sitting down, and I feel relaxed because I'm listening to other people tell their accounts of what they've experienced just listening to this recording that I made in 2019. I'm hearing and feeling great joy and great pleasure of accomplishing that. I hear someone tell me how we finally achieved something worth mentioning in the history books, because we've overcome a lot of strife, and people are more emotionally intelligent. I feel satisfaction of knowing that people are more emotionally intelligent, and they understand now that every single person has something of value to give. And I kind of feel like a rush of emotion just reflecting on that. So anyway, that's the dark night. Yeah, and honestly, reflecting on it now after doing that exercise, I feel it's important to go through those phases to develop empathy, because your greatest pain is also your greatest gift, is your greatest insight. So just like you can do sense memory for integrating some really deep emotion from the past, you can project it into the future as well. And that comes from mastering your senses. See, hear, feel. That's what the dark night phase is all about. And you go from conscious incompetence to conscious competence. It's all about mastery of the emotions. So that's the end of Act 2.